Alright, I'm going to try and make this somewhat comprehensive, but also short enough to understand easily. The randomizer I use for the original RE2 is compatible with the SourceNext PC version of the game. You can get a copy of it from archive.org. There will be links to everything in the description. After getting the game, you can find the randomizer on the big list of video game randomizers website, or just take the direct download link in the description. I would still recommend checking out the website because you might find some other randomizers you may be interested in. I've set up a folder beforehand for the tutorial process. The first step is to extract both zip files that you just downloaded. I personally use 7-zip, but any archiving software should be able to do the trick. After extracting the files, you'll want to double-click the RE2 ISO file to mount it and gain access to the files within. You'll want to make a new folder to place the game into, and then access the data folder in the game's directory and copy everything from the data folder into the new folder that you just made. At this point, you're able to launch and play the game in Japanese. Next, you'll want to also go into the support folder next to the ISO file, where there will be a lot of additional folders. The two things that you'll need from here are the 1.1 patched executable file and the classic Rebirth DLL file. Copy both of these files to the same place that you copied the contents of the game's data folder, and be sure to rename the new executable to bio2.exe and replace the existing executable. Now, with both of these in place, the only remaining thing to do is randomize the game. In the folder you extracted the randomizer to, there will be a few different files. You can ignore the DLL file, but the first thing you'll want to do is open the config.ini file with Notepad. There will be a placeholder file path in here, but you'll need to copy the directory path to the folder that you made for the game and randomizer, and paste it into this config file. Save it, and then close it. Next thing to note is that if you try to open the randomizer by its own executable, it just closes immediately. The way around this is to run it via the command prompt in the same folder. I do recommend renaming the randomizer executable because you have to type out the full name of it every time you randomize the game, so I usually just make it bio2.exe. When you open the command prompt, you open the randomizer by typing the full name of the executable without the .exe, and then a space followed by either /L for Leon or /C for Claire. Leon's option is a little bit more complete and has a few more settings. Do make sure that the letter next to the slash is a capital though. It is case sensitive and will give you an error if it's lowercase. When you type the command, the window will go full screen and ask for a few inputs to select your desired randomized options. The Y key for yes and the N key for no. First is debugging. I always disable this, it doesn't really have an effect on the user experience. Item randomization is next, which is fairly self-explanatory, and then it's enemy randomization. Puzzle Shuffle randomizes some of the positions of some puzzles, like the statue locations above the dark room and the numbers on the lighter puzzle. It also will randomize the amount of time certain timers give you, like the G4 self-destruct timer. For that reason, be careful if you decide to use the setting, as it can give you a very tight time to beat the boss. Item box mode says that it should disable some item boxes randomly, but it seems like it doesn't actually work with my testing. Enemy layout shuffle makes it so some of the room layouts from the tofu or hunk scenarios get used for enemy randomization. So if this is enabled, you might have like 10 random enemies in the waiting room save room. I recommend not using this if you're a beginner, just so it's traversable. Cutscene swap replaces most NPCs with random NPC models during in-game engine cutscenes. This usually doesn't have any issues, but occasionally you may find yourself in a cutscene that won't progress and you may be forced to reset. Disabling the handgun from the starting loadout is a fairly new setting. The item pool tends to have an additional handgun inserted, so this should just make the early game slightly harder, but when I tested this setting, it seemed like it really didn't work, and the pistol still spawned. And after going through all the settings, you should be able to launch the game and play. There are a few general things that you should keep in mind though. Firstly, pick up all of the films. In this randomizer, certain items are randomized to those films, so when you develop them in the darkroom, you get the item. This can include weapons and key items. There are 4 total films, so if you develop all 4, you can rest easy. Secondly, the amount of ammo in each pickup is also randomized, and the amounts are generally a good deal smaller than you may be used to. Be careful not to kill everything if you can help it. You might need the ammo later, but don't be afraid to kill a few tough enemies if you need to. And lastly, pick up all of the items on the way to the police station. A zombie is hard-coded to always spawn where Brad does because that item's also included in the randomization pool, so don't be afraid to pick things up. Just keep some inventory space for the blue key card until you have access to an item box. With all that said, thank you for watching. Big thanks to Dchaps for making such an awesome randomizer, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I have.